Earth's oceans turning acidic. Experts warn. Man-made emissions of carbon dioxide are making our oceans more acidic and thus threatening corals and shellfish at a rate unseen in at least 800,000 years, a Blue Ribbon panel of scientists has reported. Ocean acidification is a growing global problem that will intensify with continued CO2 emissions and has the potential to change marine ecosystems and affect benefits to society. The panel warned in its report for the National Research Council and Congress. Oceans absorb approximately a third of man-made CO2, a process that reduces CO2's impact on temperatures, but which also decreases the pH of the seas, thus making them more acidic, thereby unbalancing the very delicate balance. pH is a measure of how alkaline or acidic something is. A pH of 7 is neutral, while higher numbers are more alkaline, and lower numbers are more acidic. The average pH of ocean surface waters has decreased by about 0.1 unit, from about 8.2 to 8.1 since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the scientists said in noting earlier research. Moreover, models project an additional 0.2 to 0.3 drop by the end of the century, even under best case or optimistic scenarios, they added. In other words, it could very well be worse. It is important to note that the concentration of atmospheric CO2 is rising too rapidly for natural processes to maintain the delicate balance of the pH of the ocean, experts stated. So as a consequence, the average pH of the ocean will continue to decrease as the surface ocean absorbs more atmospheric CO2. Congress recently passed a law to fund federal research into acidification, but the panel said much more needs to be done, and more quickly, because specific impacts on specific species are still not well understood. Despite the potential for socio-economic impacts to occur in coral reef systems, aquaculture, fisheries, and other sectors, there is not currently enough information to assess these impacts, much less develop plans to mitigate or adapt to them, the experts wrote. Already, approximately 19% of the world's coral or coral reefs are gone. A global network of robust and sustained chemical and biological observations will be necessary to establish a baseline and to detect and predict changes that occur to acidification, they added. Shrinking oysters. Testing done so far is not hopeful. One of the most recent studies has been on oysters along the west coast. A biological oceanographer at the Bodega Marine Laboratory of the University of California, Davis, looked at the impact of more acidic oceans on larval and juvenile Olympia oysters. Even with small changes in acidity, seawater becomes corrosive to the shells of marine organisms, similar to what happens in carbonated soda. Increasing carbon dioxide in seawater makes it more acidic, he said in a statement summarizing his research. His testing used lab seawater with present-day CO2 ocean concentrations, as well as lab seawater that used higher CO2 levels that scientists say could occur by the end of the century, if not before. In the higher CO2 environment, larval shells at day 9 of their growth were 16% smaller than those reared in the present day seawater conditions. A week later, the difference was 41%, and the smaller oysters never caught up. 1.5 months after being transferred back to normal seawater, juveniles that had come from the high carbon dioxide environment were still 28% smaller when oysters reared for the entire experiment in controlled conditions, he said. Worldwide, oysters have already been impacted by development along coastlines. Some 85% of shellfish reefs have already been lost, taking with them valuable services like filtering water and creating natural buffers from storms and even boat wakes. Oysters have gone extinct in many areas, especially North America, Australia, and Europe. Again, oysters have gone extinct in many areas already, especially North America, Australia, and Europe, said David Garrison, Director of the National Science Foundation's Biological Oceanography Program. And yes, these are more signs. The Earth is a very finely tuned or delicately balanced giant organism or being or ecosystem in some kind of way. By changing the chemical balance of the oceans, or the atmosphere, or the air, it changes many other things that aren't well known about yet. And yes, there's something much more going on here, something much bigger. These are more signs, end times, transition days. Transition is a process. In other words, everything that must change quickly or rapidly, and the changes must be for the better. And all these are more signs. Luke chapter 21, verse 25. There shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. 26. Men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. 27. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. 28. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near.